Well, everybody, I apologize for sporting a bathrobe now, but I'm doing this pay-per-view review the night of Champions, but I found out that I have a little case of the insomnias, and I can't sleep for whatever reason, so I figured, what the hell, I'll just knock out the video, but I'm too lazy to go get dressed again, so, yeah, you get to see me in this thing. So, yeah, today, this Sunday was a day where the Giants got their first win, which I'm happy about that. If they cut out the mistakes, they might actually be a decent team, because the offense operated much better and far more efficiently today than it has throughout the entirety of the season, and against a good defense in the Houston Texans. So here's hoping that trend continues. And like I said, as long as they cut out the stupid self-inflicted boo-boos, they should be all right. But we've got 13 more games to figure that out. So here's hoping for the Giants to continue to get better. We got a Super Bowl rematch in the afternoon, which was a great game, much better than the Super Bowl was, where the Broncos in Seattle, I mean, the Broncos played much better this time around, obviously. They still came up short, and I think Seattle kind of has Peyton Manning's number, but much better game than what we got in February of this year. So great stuff. But good football day. But on the wrestling side of things, I did want to mention this weekend I finally got around to watching NXT Arrival, the special that NXT did back in, I want to say, February to launch the WWE Network. And while I do think it's hard to really get... It's hard to get the full experience watching a show that's already happened, because part of the excitement with the live wrestling show is that it's live and you don't know the results, and unfortunately with Arrival I already knew pretty much how every match was going to end. But that said, it is a pretty good show, and again, highlights a lot of the strengths that I've been seeing with NXT since I started watching with TakeOver. I probably wouldn't say it's as good as TakeOver 1 or 2, but again, this is coming from the fact that I'm watching the show 6 months after it happened, so... so yeah, that Sami Zayn-Cesaro match was very good, and just great stuff. And NXT just makes me happy. I'll take any chance I can to praise them, because it's just a well-done wrestling show. I also started watching the Monday Night Wars show that's on the network, and my fears of it being like this totally slanted pro-WWE thing, it's there a little bit, but not to the degree that usually pisses me off. Like, it's not... Like anybody who saw the Monday Night Wars DVD that came out in 02, 03, that thing was bullshit. And just the rise and fall of WCW, that thing was slanted and just a total hatchet job. And it's there a little bit with these specials, but not to the degree that it usually is. And the NWO episode, I watched the first episode and I watched the NWO episode, and the NWO episode was probably the best representation of the NWO that the WWE has ever produced. So it really captured a lot of the things that made that angle work, and it was pretty good. So okay, I'm gonna continue watching these things, and hopefully nothing too crazy happens that pisses me off. And like I said, there are a couple of things, but it wasn't too bad, or not as bad as I was expecting anyway. But that leads me into Night of Champions, the pay-per-view that happened tonight. How do I sum this up? Not terrible, but not great either. But considering how awful Raw's been lately, it's, the fact that they can pull a half-decent show out of their ass is pretty remarkable. Actually, I could say the same thing about TNA. I did watch No Surrender a few days ago, and, say what you want about TNA, and Lord knows I've said plenty. The ladder match that they did with the Wolves, the Hardys, and the Dudleys, or Team 3D, hell of a match. I thought that was like, wow, that was actually a very good match. And I thought Bobby Roode and Lashley had a great match for the world title. I was pretty impressed. I'm normally not impressed with Lashley matches, but that was pretty good. I enjoyed that one. And of course he's working with Bobby Roode, who's great, but it is nice to see TNA at least putting forth an effort in trying to put on good shows and good matches, and despite everything in their way, it's that they've kind of had to struggle through this year. But, I did think No Surrender was an overall good show. And Night of Champions was a show that really had nothing going for it. Like I said, the Raws leading into it were just awful. I mean, every Raw that's taken place since that Ambrose-Rollins match, which was fantastic. Just an awesome follow-up to SummerSlam. Pretty much every Raw that's happened after that has just been a train wreck disaster. So the fact that Night of Champions is not completely terrible is actually kind of a step up in a lot of ways. But, the Peep Show segment on the pre-show was stupid and dull, and it was just a last-ditch effort to add story to a Jericho-Orton match that had no story to it. Going into the main show itself, I thought the tag match opener was good. Stardust and Goldust versus the Usos. It was just a good, athletic tag match that highlighted the strengths of both teams. And, my complaints about turning Stardust and Goldust heel, putting that aside, they did build up Goldust and Stardust as contenders for the tag title, so they didn't look out of place here. When they first formed as Stardust and Goldust, they'd gotten all those wins over Ryback, and I think they've been mostly unbeaten up until now. So at least they've been built up over the course of a few months. Whether, the direction of the characters has been way off, and they keep talking about the Cosmic Key, and that just makes me think of He-Man, Skeletor, and Gwildor and that movie, and Frank Langella's awesome performance of Skeletor and all that stuff. But, whatever, I'll take it. And the match itself was good, and we got a title change out of it, so hopefully that helps freshen up the tag division a little bit, and they're able to give Stardust and Goldust some teams to work with, and, kind of fix some of the problems that are going on with the tag division at the moment. But overall, good match, and I was fine with the title change. And United States title, Cesaro versus Sheamus. Okay, I want to highlight this here. Context is everything, and really, really means a lot in setting up great matches. Cesaro and Sheamus went into a situation where they had absolutely nothing to work with. The build-up was weak. Cesaro had been jobbed out for so long that the idea of him being a top contender to a championship seemed ridiculous. The U.S. title means nothing and nobody gives a shit, so this match is just a giant void. There's just nothing to it. Cesaro and Sheamus go out there and put on a pretty damn good match, athletically. Like, everything they did in the ring, Sheamus looked like he got a little winded at points, and he was taking a few too many rests, and he looked like, dude, get in shape, But whatever, that's just nitpicking. Overall, I thought it was a damn good match, just a good, hard-hitting, physical match, especially some of the counters that Cesaro pulled out there, and it was just a really good athletic match, and I'm just sitting there thinking, wow, could you imagine if this match actually had a good build-up? If Cesaro had been set up well as a contender? Or if anybody actually gave a shit about the U.S. title? This might actually be a Match of the Year contender if you'd actually put that much effort into it, but as is, Cesaro and Sheamus just had to go out there and bust their ass to make something out of nothing, and they did. It was actually a pretty good match. It's just a shame that people are going to forget about this and give it a month and people will have already forgotten about this match, as opposed to another Cesaro match, the Sami Zayn Cesaro match from Arrival, which I've been hearing about for months and months and months ever since that show happened, and I never saw it, but people are still talking about that match. And watching the match for the first time when I watched Arrival this weekend, I can see why, and it's not just because of the stuff that they did athletically, it's because of all the callbacks to the previous matches that they had, and the fact that this had been a 4-match series with constant evolution, with Sami Zayn getting closer and closer and closer to getting a win over Cesaro, and they had spaced out the matches, so it wasn't just, 4 matches on top of each other right away. Sami Zayn was kind of on this journey to get a win over Cesaro, and he just couldn't get that win. And I got a sense of the entire storyline just watching this one match, and it felt like the culmination of something, and Sami just couldn't get that last win over Cesaro, but he earned his respect in the process, and it felt like a fully realized story, and it also helps that the commentators were making those points too, and that's just something you don't have most of the time on Raw or on the main WWE product, but NXT, they do it fairly well. So that is what it is, but the U.S. title match was pretty good. I just wanted to highlight a lot of the pitfalls that how it was hampered by a lot of the booking, and how you probably won't remember this match in 3 months through no fault of the wrestlers. And speaking of things going wrong through no fault of the wrestlers, the Intercontinental title match, Miz versus Dolph Ziggler, was awful. It sucked. And I don't blame Miz or Ziggler at all whatsoever. They take no fault in this, and if anything, their effort made the match better than it had any right to be. It's just that they spent the entire time on commentary putting over the musical guests, and it was distracting, and it took away from the match, and it made the match more about them than it did the wrestlers in the ring who were fighting over a championship, which, once again, nobody gives a shit about. And it made the match suck. It just made me sit there thinking, it's like, can we just end this already? Because this is stupid. And again, it's all on the commentary. It really has nothing to do with what was going on in the ring. It was just the entire segment was more about what was going on commentary than it was in the ring, and that's what. You can't fix that. It just ruined the whole thing. But for what I mean, Ziggler and Miz tried, and Miz won the title again, which I question that decision. Just, not that I'm knocking Miz, it's just that Ziggler just won the belt, and people were liking the run. Could we do something a little different with it? I mean, if you're gonna have Ziggler drop the title, can we move in a new direction? Otherwise, what was the point of taking the title off of Miz in the first place? I will say this: I do like Damien Sandow as Miz's stunt double. I think that's a good gimmick for him because they've basically fucked over Sandow so bad that if he's going to be a comedy jobber, at least put him into a situation that's actually funny. Like the Magneto thing that they did was awful, and the some of the other comedy skits they've done with him are terrible. But him as Miz's stunt double is actually kind of funny. R-Truth is Ziggler's stunt double, not so much, but I do like Sandow in that role, and I think he does get some legitimate belly laughs out of it. So, okay, that's fine. But this IC title match, it was pointless, and it sucked, and I didn't like it. So, next up was the return of Dean Ambrose, as he came out and challenged Seth Rollins, and attacked Seth Rollins following the cancellation of the Rollins and Reigns match, which obviously I have to talk about this. Roman Reigns had to have emergency surgery, and I wish him all the best, and I hope everything turns out okay for him. And again, it's always unfortunate when things like that happen. So I hope Roman Reigns comes back better than ever. But ever since the Shield broke up, and Ambrose has been on his path and Reigns has been on his path, and it feels like this has been a recurring topic is whether or not Dean Ambrose should leapfrog Reigns as the main event spot guy. And I think it's going from a hope to a distinct possibility, because I think Ambrose is just so over and is so interesting as a character that you just can't ignore it. And I think he might leapfrog Roman Reigns. It's getting to a point where if they don't do something with Ambrose, they're fools. Now, unfortunately, I have to voice a major displeasure on my part. I did not get to see this segment because my internet feed died right in the middle of Seth's speech, so I got to miss Ambrose return, which really pisses me off. It's like, of all the things for the pay-per-view feed to cut out on, it's the thing I was waiting for. But I didn't mind not having the Reigns-Rollins match, just because we already saw it on Raw, and what was the point of doing the match again at the pay-per-view? It's unfortunate that the match got canceled for the reasons that it did, but I heard the segment was really good, and I heard the reaction to Ambrose was amazing. I just didn't get to see it because my internet feed cut out, and fuck me, whatever. Then we got Mark Henry versus Rusev, which was not a good match, but in terms of giving Rusev what he needed to build as a character, it was fine, so I can live with it. He basically destroyed Henry, and, they gave Henry that emotional kind of entrance with, the whole big USA thing that they gave him, and then Rusev beats him. It just puts more heat on Rusev, and it gave Rusev a different win as he moves up the ladders and, builds more heat. So for that, from that booking standpoint, it works fine. I wouldn't say it was a good match necessarily, or that memorable of a match, but in terms of setting up Rusev as a character, I thought it worked out fine. So I can live with it. What came after that? Was the Divas match next? Yeah, the Divas 3-Way, which had some effort and some good points in it. The flow of the match was a little herky-jerky, but it was overall not a bad match, so I can live with it. AJ winning the title was kind of a surprise, but yeah, that's all I have to say, really. That's all I got. That match happened. That's kind of all I have to say. It wasn't a bad match. It wasn't awful, but it was just sort of there. Another match that was just sort of there, this is the one, I think I forgot this match. Jericho and Orton one-on-one was kind of Again, context is everything. This match had no story to it. It was just some random thing that they threw together. There was no understanding that the win would mean something to either guy. It was just kind of something that they threw together a couple weeks ago, and nobody really cared, and it was kind of a nothing match. It picked up a little bit towards the end, but overall, it was just kind of a... there was that. like that just happened, and I didn't really care, because, you know, the storyline didn't give me a reason to care. But overall, you know, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't anything to necessarily write home about either. Then we got the main event, John Cena versus Lesnar, which was eye-roll inducing, because it was they kind of did what I thought they were going to do, where Cena is going to fight back and almost beat Lesnar and beat the shit out of Lesnar and basically undo what happened at the SummerSlam match. But something screwy is going to happen to keep the belt on Lesnar, and that's exactly what happened. Where Cena kind of got to his point where he beat the shit out of Lesnar. You know, he AA'd him like 4 times. He put him in the STF, and part of me thought they might. It was like, all right, one thing they could do with this match that would make it worth something would be is if Lesnar made Cena tap out, and when he started locking in the Kimura lock, I was like, oh my god, could Cena tap out? And it was like, no, that didn't happen. No, not even close. So, silly me for thinking that something interesting might happen. But Seth Rollins came down, caused a disqualification, curb stomped Lesnar, and everybody's saying, oh my god, he's going to cash in. But then Cena breaks it up. And the Cena-Lesnar match ends on a DQ, and the Money in the Bank was never cashed in, and the squash match from SummerSlam was basically undone. So what was the point in doing this match? It was just... I mean, there was no reason to do this match at all, except to have Cena save some face after what happened at SummerSlam, which to me wasn't necessary. I think the storyline would be more effective if Lesnar has that win under his belt completely, where he just demolished Cena and won the belt. But this sort of taints it a little bit, where it's almost like he shouldn't be the champion, because it looked like Cena was going to win, and you know, it was more of a 50-50 match this time around. So it kind of takes what happened at SummerSlam and kind of dilutes it and diminishes it a little bit. So I question what was the purpose of even doing this match. I don't get it. I mean, if you weren't going to do a Money in the Bank cash-in, you weren't going to do something more extreme like Cena tapping out, or you weren't going to do anything like another clean win for Lesnar or anything like that, like, what was the point of doing this match? I mean, thank God Lesnar kept the title. I mean, if Cena had won, I would have come out on here and just shit all over the pay-per-view. But as is the main event, like I said, it was just unnecessary. The match just doesn't need to exist. It wasn't. I'm not going to sit here and say it was like an awful match or anything. I just disagree with the way it was booked and the way they got around having Cena lose again. I just thought it was kind of like, all right, whatever. But as it stands, Lesnar's the right guy to be holding the belt for now, especially as they build into WrestleMania, and they kept the belt on him, so I guess no long-term damage was done. I just don't. It was one of those. At the end of the day, it's one of those matches that they did just for the sake of having a title match on a pay-per-view, which isn't always necessary. And I just hope, you know, since Lesnar's a part-timer, he might not be working Hell in a Cell. Oh my god, if they do Cena Lesnar Hell in a Cell, I'm gonna, like, oh, my head might explode. But I've said it again. Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins, Hell in a Cell match, let them close the pay-per-view, and it's the only Hell in a Cell match on the card. Let them have that. I think the feud warrants it. I think it's the best storyline in the company right now. I think it's the one that I'm the most invested in. It's the one that has the characters that I'm the most invested in. I think the grudge between the two feels tangible and exciting, and I think they could do something with it. And I think that give them that spot. I think they've earned that spot. The match they had on Raw the night after SummerSlam was amazing. They actually had a good lumberjack match, which I can count on one hand the number of good lumberjack matches I've seen. I think Rollins and Ambrose deserve that climax to their feud. They deserve that Hell in a Cell spot. And I say, give them the main event spot. Don't have any other Hell in a Cell matches on the card. Just let Ambrose and Rollins have that. And I think that's the way it should be. But that is all I have for now. And hopefully I'm going to be able to go back to sleep after this. We shall see. Not that any of you care. But, yeah, Night of Champions, like I said, not an awful show, but not a great one. But in some ways, it's actually a step up from what the WWE's been doing lately. So, you know, I'll take it. But, yeah, that's all I have for now. Y'all enjoy your week. And I might have another video during the week. Again, we shall see. But, peace out, everybody, and I will see you all later.